Hi, everybody. And this is the second one of the summer. I'm like, it feels like it's been summer forever. And we have only just started. Welcome to new Vakai people who have not been with us. Meet some of the opera fans. Opera fans meet some new singers in our community. We just finished our first week of work. That was about the basic idea of legato and really making a beautiful line. You've heard us be on that soapbox for a long, long time. Oh, my mom is here. My mom is here. It's better in the summer because there's only 6 hours time difference. Next time, I hope to see her neighbors who are apparently lovers of good music. Mom, jy moet aanstuur die link daar vir die predikant langs aan. Okay, I just had to say some words in Afrikaans to my mom. Okay, I'm going to give it right over to Stephen. I can't wait to hear what he has in store for us. For those of you who are new, we are active in the chat. Derek calls it passing notes in class. So if you hear something specific in the recording you like, feel free to exclaim in delight, what gorgeous singing, or whatever it is you want to write. Share your ideas. There will probably be quite a few exclamations of, yes, I'm so glad that's in chest voice. That tends to happen here a lot. And so back over to Stephen. I'll see you in the chat.
Thank you, Rochelle. Today's topic, insofar as there is one, is what Rochelle had promised in a post she said, and it comes up this week in the Vakai project, which is the idea of singing intervals rather than pitches. In other words, judging line by the interval between the two notes and how that is traversed rather, and instead of thinking of discrete pitches as making up the line. And the difference between those two different types of approach become very obvious in the type of legato or non-legato singing that you get. We're going to start today with a recording from 1924, a Hungarian soprano named Maria Ivogün, singing the Don Pasquale Act 1 aria of Norina. It's considered one of the finest recordings ever of this. She recorded it both in German and a little later in Italian. This is the later Italian recording. Both are very good, but I prefer, of course, to hear it in Italian. So without further ado, 1924, Maria Ivogün, Quel guardo il cavaliere. And I didn't go to the right place here, so let me just stop the share for a second. I asked to go to this. Here we are. Great.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of freedom in that, a lot of musical imagination, some imperfect Italian, but her Italian's much better than my Hungarian, so I, I kind of forgive her for scherzar and things like that. Um, Anyway, fantastic. And notice that we're getting so used to it here in this particular group, but notice how many of both the small intervals and the big ones she gave an audible portamento. So I just keep reminding people that it's there because it's our ears are becoming accustomed to it in this particular group, and yet if someone were to sing it this way today, it would be noted for sure. The next, we're going to stay with Don Pasquale for two other selections. We're mostly with bel canto operas today. Um, the echt bel canto, the middle bel canto, the Donizetti, Rossini, Bellini operas. Next, we have the Malatesta Norina duet that follows this aria fairly closely with Lucrezia Borri and Giuseppe De Luca. Um, Lucrezia Borri, just a word about her. She was a Spanish soprano, um, quite a glamorous lady who debuted at the Met. She actually debuted at the Met in Paris in 1910 when they were on tour, and she took over for a metropolitan soprano who was ill. But then she finally made her debut at the actual Old Met in 1912 with Caruso in Massenet's Manon, a revival that was justly famous in its day. In 1915, her career was interrupted when she developed nodes on her vocal folds, which was not common at the time, but of course did happen to certain singers. Caruso had apparently at one point nodes that went away. I'm not sure if hers were operated on. Hers were operated on, and she convalesced for something like 4.5 years before she dared to come back and sing on the stage. She resumed her career actually in 1920. The recording we're going to hear is from 1921. It is delightful. De Luca, you'll remember, was in that Don Pasquale duet of the two men that we heard with Corradetti that was so funny. Here, let's enjoy them in Pronta io son.
Ed Ernesto sono amico e belli voglio. Voi sapete e belli voglio. Solo tende il nostro imbroglio Don Pasquale a corbellar. Solo tende il nostro imbroglio Don Pasquale a corbellar. Voi sapete se d'Ernesto sono amico e belli voglio. Lo sapete, solo tende il nostro imbroglio Don Pasquale a corbellar. Don Pasquale, Don Pasquale, Don Pasquale a corbellar. Solo tende Don Pasquale a corbellar. Solo tende a corbellar. Solo tende Don Pasquale, solo tende a corbellar. Io la parte ora il
Mi volete fiera?
No,
Mi volete bella? Bella?
no, la parte non è questa.
Oh, già piano.
No.
Oh,
No,
tremendo.
la parte non è questa, 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 state un po' ad ascoltare. Convien farla semplicità,
La semplicità, la semplicità.
or la parte convincente,
Oh, che questo perfezione.
quando torso e bocca
Or
stretta,
proviamo questa strazione.
or proviamo quest'altra azione.
Viva
brava, brava, brava. Brava, brava, Briconcella, fa benissimo così. Brava, 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 così, così, ma brava, ma va benissimo così. Bene, brava, brava, a Briconcella, Briconcella, va benissimo così. Collo torto, torto. Brava, bocca stretta, stretta, stretta. Ma ci coloriamo al granchimento. Sì, corriamo al granchimento, piene il cuore d'ardimento, la salsa brano molto sentiremo a discosia. A quel vecchia bella testa questa volta da gira, a quel vecchia bella testa questa volta da gira, a quel vecchia bella testa questa volta da gira. Sentiremo a discopiar, la salsa sentiremo a discopiar, e la salsa sentiremo a corriamo al gran cimento, piene il cuore d'ardimento, la salsa brano molto sentiremo a discosia. A quel vecchia bella testa questa volta da gira, a quel vecchia bella testa questa volta da gira, a quel vecchia bella testa questa volta da gira. Sentiremo di scoppiar, la salsa sentiremo di scoppiar, e la salsa sentiremo a discoppiar. Brava, va benissimo così, bene, brava, 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 sì, così, va benissimo così. Va benissimo così.
Stephen, I'm just going to jump in here 1 second to say something about what it is we hear in the older singers. Yes, it is true that we hear, as a rule, more representative singing of the old Italian style the older the singer is. And there are multiple reasons for it. They were closer to that tradition than we are now. They were more trained in that tradition. Also, I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way. Not so many bad singers were recorded, because in order to be recorded during that time, you had to kind of be like a superstar, right? Because everybody didn't walk around with an iPhone that could make a recording of good enough quality to put on YouTube. So you tend to get a better pickings from what was heard during that time, and they all sing, as I said in the chat, according to the same system. The thing that you get here that is not so representative of how it was in Rossini, Donizetti, and Bellini's time is these high notes at the end. This idea of like ending bel canto arias and caballetas with high dominance. That was a tradition of the time that came from the time of Puccini and from the idea of verismo opera. And that is not representative of how it was done in that time. And you hear it almost, I would say, almost consistently in this era recording. You will hear these interpolated high notes at the end, which then became traditional, as you will learn later in the course. In fact, absolutely not traditional, no, and not how these arias and caballettas used to end at all. Thanks.
Only from a few of the very oldest singers do you get the idea of not doing that, and because they were so deeply entrenched in the bel canto idea,
right?
Not the verismo,
right?
We're going to continue with our Don Pasquale excerpts with a video recording from 1979 of a performance. I saw another performance in this run in the house in '79. This was a Don Pasquale with Beverly Sills, Gabriel Baquier, Håkan Haugegaard, and Alfredo Kraus. And this is the opening of Act 2, the Ernesto aria. I'm going to skip forward a little bit and miss some of the trumpet solo so we can hear more things today. So those of you who are a fan of that trumpet solo, please forgive me.
Dallo zio cacciato, da tutti abbandonato, mi restava un amico e un coperto nemico. Si scopro in lui che a danni miei congiura. Ben feci a lei d'esprimere in un foglio i sensi miei. Ora in altra contrada i giorni grani deplorando il
Strauss often sang that high, I guess it would be a D, um, D flat. But he eschewed it today. I could sort of imagine that I saw on his face that little moment of, am I going to or am I not? Better not. Would that we all had such a good judgment when we're not feeling a high D flat. The next thing I'm going to play is a duet we've listened to before, but in a different performance. This is from I Puritani and is the famous duet Suoni la tromba. I played it before, well, I can't remember exactly what, but this one is from 1912 with Pasquale Amato, a baritone we haven't heard before, but who was a big star at the Met, and Marcel Journet, a French bass who we've heard before, who sounds very much like a baritone rather than a bass, but he sang bass roles, as well as some high tessitura bass baritone things. Notice again, for those of you who are doing the Vakai project and are thinking about intervals rather than pitches, notice how much of this is in stepwise motion, this basic melody. Here we go with Pasquale Amato and Journet.
La tromba intrepido, io pugnerò da forte, quello è affrontar la morte, gridando libertà. Amor di patria inevapido, mieta e sanguigni valori, poi terga vai sudori, e pianti la pietà.
Yeah, another thing to notice. Sorry, another thing to notice about that was how marvelous their legato was, even though they were singing very energetically. And nowadays, you find so many people who kind of pump the sound, but and make a marcato sound on each note. And this was so absolutely bound legato, even in the most energetic of utterances. It's a real lesson in that legato with energy. The next thing I have is another high tenor. This one, Nicolai Gedda. Nicolai Gedda actually alternated with Alfredo Kraus in that 78-79 Don Pasquale at the Met. But unfortunately, Gedda's voice did not age as well as Kraus's did. And although he could always get the notes and get them rather brilliantly, the high notes especially, the basic timbre of his voice dried out and was less attractive than Kraus's by the time we reach the late 70s, early 80s. And he kind of curtailed his career a little ahead of Kraus, although they were of a similar age. I think if anything, Gedda was, well, I don't know, but they were about the same age. This is a performance from Philadelphia in the mid 60s. The recording is not great. It was recorded from way back in the auditorium, so you're hearing the voice of Gedda and the voice of Joan Sutherland, who he's singing with, from a distance. But wow, you can still really get the effect of especially the powerful forte high notes. This is Vieni fra queste braccia, the duet of the lovers in the last act of I Puritani. And you can hear the people who recorded it with their tape recorder in their lap talking during the during the applause. That's exactly the kind of gladiatorial thing that is so popular nowadays that Rochelle was kind of talking against. And yeah, I have very mixed feelings about it. It's wonderful if somebody has a great note that they can show off, but it does become incredibly boring to have this rote presentation of your dominant tonic at the end of every aria, and especially bad enough when you can do it, but insist on doing it all the time, and even worse when you really can't do it.
I'm just, Stephen, I just want to jump in here
Sure.
1 second again and just say something about tenors in the modern era singing this kind of repertoire. It's interesting because a lot of the sounds that you heard there in the top, both from the soprano, but mostly from him, in no way is bel of bel canto. It is no longer pretty, yet the audience completely responds to it because it is a kind of full-throated, chesty singing up there. So we kind of live in a world that has more and more, and we still accept that. There are still tenors who kind of squeal out that super high notes in a kind of very chesty modern way. It is not pretty, but we kind of applaud the fact that they don't die. In fact, if we have to listen to the sound, we could not say that we love it. We could not say that that is a beautiful sound. So a lot of this repertoire was not written for tenors to sing with as much chest voice as they do now. So it is kind of an impossible world for the modern tenor. And we at Bel Canto Bootcamp, in fact, try to bring back more of the headier singing for tenors so that these roles don't kind of sound so ugly. And then, of course, if you have to kind of force, as I said in the chat as well, very often the tenor sings the third above the soprano. Of course, he sings octave down, right? But he sings in his voice higher than the soprano sings in her voice. And that is because the tenor sang with that lighter mechanism. So, and then if you sing with this heavy modern mechanism, it gets extremely tiring for the tenor. And then you put the high note at the end, which the composer never wrote, and then you're really screwed because the voice is so tired by the end of it that really the best you can do is, well, we've never heard something like that. No, I absolutely have never heard something like that. But it doesn't make me, it doesn't fill my heart with beauty. But it's oh my God, they didn't die. Right. So this is a very kind of modern feeling for what we think that those people had in mind with those lighter tenor voices, which you can hear elsewhere in our listening sessions.
It's very interesting. I have another Geta selection after in two down the line here, and in that he also sings a high D. But it's in a different context, and I wonder if you'll feel the same way about that particular high D, because if my memory of the recording is serving me well, and I just reviewed it a little bit last night as I was putting this together, it's somehow integrated into the sound of the rest of the voice a little bit better than this absolutely, excuse my French, but balls to the wall kind of singing that we had today. But first, we're going to hear one more excerpt from Puritani. This is Ezio Pinza in an early electrical recording, so sometime around 1925-26, of Cinta di Fiori, and is one of my favorite Pinza recordings.
va cantando il giuro, poi grida per amor, tutto tremante. Oh, vieni Arturo, oh, vieni Artur. E me calor qual tortora amorosa, orcade finta da mortal sudor, or l'odia al suon dell'arpa lamentosa, cantar d'amor, piante, s'affanna, e ancor più amante, in poca morte, piante, s'affanna, e ancor più amante, in poca prendi al suo dolor, al
Pretty great example of a lot of varied approaches to that six that he keeps singing. Some of the times the portamento is very audible, other times it's very fast and almost inaudible. And the unequal eighth notes also really very interesting from that standpoint. Now we get to the other Geta recording that I was going to play, and this is not from a bel canto opera. This is by Boileau and is from Le Postillon de Longjumeau. It's a very famous aria. I think maybe earlier in this series I played another tenor singing this aria, but this is Geta from the mid-60s, so rather, well, about the same time as we heard him in the Puritani duet. But it's a studio recording, and notice that this aria has a refrain, which the first time the high note comes about as a matter of a fourth, of the leap of a fourth, the second time the leap of a sixth, and finally the leap of an octave to get to a high D. Here we go.
Jeune et galant postillon. C'est véridique, on peut m'en croire, et connu de tout le canton. Quand il passait dans un village, tout le beau sexe était ravi, et le cœur de la plus sauvage galopait en groupe avec lui. Oh, le postillon de Longjumeau, le postillon de Longjumeau. l'absence de son mari. Parfois se mettait en voyage pour être conduite par lui. Au procédé toujours fidèle, on savait qu'un droit postillon, s'il verse parfois une peine, ce n'était que sur le gazon. Oh, 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 qu'il était beau, le postillon de Longjumeau. Oh, 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 qu'il était beau, qu'il était beau, le postillon de Longjumeau, le postillon de Longjumeau. Mais pour conduire un équipage, voilà qu'un soir il est parti. Depuis ce temps, dans le village, on n'entend plus parler de lui. Mais ne déplorez pas sa perte, car de l'humaine suivant la loi, la reine du Nil déserte de ses sujets la nommé roi. Oh, 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 qu'il était beau, le postillon de Longjumeau. Oh, 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 qu'il était beau, qu'il était beau, le postillon de Longjumeau, le postillon de
Yes, I agree absolutely about. It would be nice to hear that D really, a much headier sound. Since she had already given us a wonderful B, just put the D in a different place. But it's maybe a new generation of singers will recapture that, and we'll hear that performance. Next, speaking of the wider intervals once again, sixths and sevenths, I've got an old recording from 1906 of the opening of the Figaro Almaviva duet, All'idea di quel metallo. This is not a recording of the entire duet, it's just the opening 5 minutes or so, and it's with Fernando de Lucia, and I think it's Pini Corsi is the other singer. I don't have it written in front of me, and it's you'll notice that this is not at score pitch. This is a downward transposition. Somebody with better ears than mine can tell me how far down it is, but at any rate, enjoy for again the way the intervals are taken. Here we go. Oh, he has to put on the record first. This guy makes a whole production out of it.
All'idea di quel metallo un vulcano l'abbia rete, sei convinta, sì, verità, sì, sì. All'idea di quel metallo un vulcano l'abbia rete, sei convinta, sì, verità, oh di verità, oh di verità, oh di verità, oh di verità. sul suono del vulcan della tua mente, qualche mastro singolare, del vulcano della tua mente, qualche moto singolare, del vulcano della tua mente, qualche moto singolare, qualche mostro voi dovreste travestirvi per Dio da soldato, sì, signore, da soldato. Ma perché, ma perché, ma perché? Oggi arriva un reggimento, oggi arriva un reggimento, e mio amico il colonnello, e mio amico il colonnello. Ma però, ma e poi? E che aspetto? Della nostra fa il biglietto, e la porta s'aprirà, che ne dite, mio signore? Non mi fa, non l'ho trovata. Che invenzione meribola, che invenzione meribola, che invenzione meribola, bella, 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 che invenzione meribola, bella, 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 che invenzione bella, bella, bella,
Yeah, I wish the rest of the duet were available, but that's all they recorded. um, for our last selection today, we have something rather different, rather further down the line historically in terms of the music. This is the last act of Louisa Miller duet between Louisa and her father, Miller. And it's from a live recording from 1974 with the baritone Matteo Mandaguerra, who we heard before in this series. Wonderful Tunisian baritone with a really good sense of style. And a Mexican soprano named Gilda Cruz Romo, who was not exactly a cult singer, but she didn't get the fame or the due that she really should have in the mid 70s. She sang a lot at the Met. I heard her as Angelica, and I think in a couple other things. But she was always second cast to Arroyo or Price or Kerry Takanawa or somebody else. And here, I think her work is very fine. It's not a perfect voice. You'll hear the vibrato sometimes slows a little bit, not so much a wobble, but just a slowness of the vibrato, and sometimes there'll just be slight vocal mishaps. But I think in terms of the overall line and sweep of what she does and the intensity of what she does, it's really remarkable. I love this duet. It's extended, and the high notes note are all or almost all, I think all in this case, actually written by Verdi. It has a very high tessitura in a couple of places. Here we go with the scene. If you don't know it, it's the scene where Miller discovers that Louisa has planned to commit suicide and spends a long time talking her out of it. And by the end of the duet, they have resolved, instead of her killing herself, that they will leave the village, leave their home and their belongings behind, and become wanderers.
sei.
No, padre mio, tranquillo io son.
Del genitore, oh quanto caro lo scampo a te costava. Io tutto da vurma presi, all'amor tuo per me rinziasti.
E verma in terra,
Quella calma e funesta, il cor mi serra, non so qual mio presagio. Che foglio è questo?
al suo destin promette, se m'ami, o madre, che recato il fia.
Orribil tradimento ne disgiunse Rodolfo, un giuramento più dir mi toglie. David dimora in cura inganno può, ne giura bel possanza alcuna. Ivi t'aspetto, come di mezzanotte udrai la squilla. Vieni. Sotto il mio piede il suol vacilla. Ma dimora, mancar mi sento. Ma dimora, saria.
La tomba. Perché ti pone si conspaventa?
Ma sul mio corpo un fulme piomba.
La tomba è tua sposa.
I like to have something extended each week, a little bit longer scene, and that's what I've found for this week. Um, Usually, it's from more modern recordings because the older recordings tended to be shorter and shorter excerpts. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting and a good way to round out our look at intervals, not pitches.
Thank you, Stephen. That is fantastic. Would you unshare your screen so I can see everybody's faces?
Oh, sure.
Thank you so much. That was gorgeous. I love the longer scenes. I love that we do that. We spend so much time like in our world, like listening to arias and short bits of music. I can't wait for our next extended opera or an entire act, something or like that. I know you have some ideas brewing in your head.
Oh, yes.
Any comments, especially since we have some new people? It's a different experience, right? Being able to listen with other people. There's a lot of technical talk today. Any questions from opera fans being like, oh, what are you all talking about? No? Any of the singers, any thoughts? Everybody enjoyed it. I think that was fantastic. Thank you so much. Love the fact that there are more duets. Yeah, it's great. It's great to be able to, I think that's what's wonderful. Stephen does such a fantastic job kind of broadening our minds, like letting us hear maybe a repertoire that we don't hear all the time, voices that we have never heard of. I love coming here. I think if you're going to do an hour and 15 minutes of listening in a week, you can just do this. I think this is just about all the listening you need to hear like good, solid singing that is good to emulate. Stephen, thank you very much. Next week, everybody, we have an interesting guest. Chuck Hudson is visiting with Stephen next week, and we're going to look and talk about physical performance of Callas, the Tosca
64.
Tosca 1964, and it's kind of in preparation with the work that he's going to be doing during intermezzos. So you get to know Chuck. If you're interested in joining the work that he's going to do, you can find it on the website. I think for the opera fans, it will be interesting as well to watch a performance of like who is maybe known as the best or most famous singing actress of modern times, Maria Callas, and look at what she did, how she did it, how she was revolutionary, and what we can learn from it in preparation for what it is we are going to try and learn physically, which is going to be the same kind of thing. It's not going to be like how to express your aria. Again, it's going to be about refining the technique of your physicality. So I've worked with Chuck before, and he is extremely knowledgeable, trained mime artist. And I've always been interested in what he brings from just a visual perspective to the singer's life. This is new for us this summer, that we have that we're expanding our technical work to also include what it is we look like when we sing, what we do with our bodies. So that will be next week. We hope to see all of you then. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.